Michigan Magazine is kept on the road by our many Michigan friends. For home, medical, and healthcare products, visit Rose City Drug at 2640 North M33, just south of Rose City city limits. Rose City Drug has a complete diabetic department, including shoes. Serving Michigan for over 20 years. Rose City Drug, Rose City. You'll find delicious food and fun at Timber Steakhouse, East County Line Road, South Branch, Michigan. You'll find delicious steaks, pizza, and a full menu with the best food in the North. Enjoy the fine food and karaoke fun at Timber Steakhouse, County Line Road, South Branch. Tri-Point Connections, a church connecting to God, people, and community. Tri-Point Connections invites you to rediscover church in a relaxed, refreshing atmosphere. Join us Saturdays for fellowship and worship. Hi, welcome to Michigan Magazine. I'm Barry Stutzman. Fall time in Michigan, one of the best times of the year to get out and enjoy it. Off the beaten path, this is where you're going to find the fascinating colors from the UP down to the lower part of our state. They're all over and slowly coming to an end for another year. It's a glorious exhibition here in Michigan. Get out and enjoy it. On today's edition of Michigan Magazine, we're already looking ahead to next summer with the announcement of Northern Michigan Cowboy Days 2013. We're going to visit with organizer Cliff Parent, who's been putting the event together since 2000. It's an event celebrating the TV and movie cowboy heroes of yesteryear, with cowboy lookalikes and special events spread throughout northern Michigan. So saddle up and stay tuned. Then we're bringing back, by popular demand, our visit with an incredible knife maker who practices his craft from his home studio in Atlanta, Michigan. Webster Wood has garnered national notoriety from his beautiful and intricate knife making. That's what's on the menu this week, so stay tuned. It's time to hit the back roads to fill our journal pages on this edition of Michigan Magazine.
Vacation. Don't make the planning of it more than what you're trying to get away from. At northernmichigancabinrentals.com, you can choose from over 2,500 cabins, cottages, lodges, resorts, lakefront vacation home rentals, and more. Whatever experience you're looking for, from rustic to luxury and everything in between. No more rustling with telephone books. No more endless internet searches. Just one site with over 2,500 Northern Michigan destinations. northernmichigancabinrentals.com.
If you were a child of the 50s and 60s, you knew the excitement of hunkering down in front of the old black and white television set or counting your pennies to head to the movies for the latest adventures of cowboy heroes like Roy Rogers, Lash LaRue, or the Lone Ranger and Tonto. Those were the days, and those were some of the true heroes of the day. The list could continue with Annie Oakley, John Wayne, Tom Mix. It's a time when kids knew who the bad guys were, and the good guys always prevailed. Nowadays, you can catch some of those cowboy heroes in old reruns and full-length movies on television. And through those reruns, popularity is returning. So says cowboy enthusiast and collector Cliff Parent, who's been a fan and a memorabilia collector for years. His love of those old West heroes has drawn him to conventions and gatherings of similar interested fans nearly every year. Cliff has been the promoter and organizer of Cowboy Days here in northern Michigan since the early part of this decade, bringing cowboy lookalikes to the Great Lakes state in appreciation of those heroes of yesteryear. With next year's event being planned as we speak, we had an opportunity to sit down and talk with Cliff about the upcoming event that's not set in any one location but travels through the countryside, spreading the goodwill like an old West traveling show. We're sitting here looking and reminiscing about some of the old-time cowboy heroes. They were the heroes of their day, weren't they, Cliff?
They sure were.
Uh-huh.
You go back in the early 50s, you had Hoppy and you had Tom Mix, and you had Lash LaRue and Roy Rogers. And
you've got some memorabilia here. You were really into it, and you're still kind of preserving the Old West in what we're going to be doing in the near future in the northern Michigan area,
right.
The Cowboy Days. But when did you start collecting these things, Cliff? I have a youngster? Or?
Yeah, back in the 50s, I started collecting some Roy Rogers stuff when he was on television. They had the Roy Roger fan club, and you send in, and he'd send us your picture. I got one from one year and one from the following year here.
And this one here was from the, was this the first one you got here?
I think this was the first one.
Okay. Happy Trails, Roy Rogers and Trigger.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. And then these were his kids.
The kids, yep.
Yep. And by golly. And of course, this is a fascinating piece you've got here too, of Roy Rogers' investment firm that he...
this is one of the original canceled checks.
Okay.
That a friend of mine happened to get a bunch of these canceled checks, and this picture here was taken off of a notepad that you could buy for school, and that was the cover of the notepad.
Okay.
But it's fun collecting this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
It's just, and there's, you know, I just enjoy
You're going
it.
to have to open up a museum, Cliff. I don't know about this. I mean, you've had lunch pails, you've had cap guns, and
Cap guns,
that were
mannequins,
collectibles. Yeah, he had the whole outfit there of Lone Ranger at one time.
That was signed by John Hart. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something. But we're going to bring the community's going to bring together an Old West type Cowboy Days next year. You've been doing this Cowboy Days
since 2000.
2000.
I first met him down in Cambridge, Ohio in 2000, and then we bought him up here in the spring, the summer. And what we did, we had a grand opening at Abigail's Antique Shop, and they were up here for the grand opening.
Okay.
Then in 2001, we brought in, a friend of mine has a ranch down in Sterling, and he brought in the original John Hart, the Lone Ranger. He was here for 10 days.
Oh, my.
And he was in the parades, and he done autograph sessions, and we just had a lot of good times together talking and reminiscing about Hollywood. And
yeah, you're talking about bringing them up. We're talking about, he was the original. I mean, he was, John Hart was not the original, but he was the second Lone Ranger. But the people you're bringing up are kind of lookalikes.
Lookalikes.
Bringing them back. The other ones are kind of passed off into the old
they're up in heaven
corral.
now.
Yeah. But, and this is exciting, too, because it's bringing back a time, and it's reintroducing these cowboys, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the Cagle brothers coming from Ohio. They have Don that plays the Lone Ranger. Mm-hmm. They have Ken that plays Rooster Cogburn. Mm-hmm. They have Don's son, Mike. He plays Tom Mix.
Okay.
And then we have Gary that plays, he was playing John Wayne there for a while. Now he switched his to Matt Dillon. Mm-hmm. And then we have John Pips from Indiana. He plays Tonto. Mm-hmm. And then we got two new ones coming this next year. They're Fuzzy. He was a sidekick that played with most all the cowboys. Mm-hmm. And he lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and he's coming up. And then his friend, Rochelle, she plays Annie Oakley, and she lives in North Carolina, and she'll be coming up.
Oh, boy.
And Canyons was so nice to give us the rooms for them to stay in.
Now, a lot of kids and people are hearing these names for the first time. The children are anyway, I think, but the children of the 50s, 60s, and 70s might remember all these as some of the biggest heroes of their time. Right. And they did make an impact on the baby boomers of yesterday. Right. I'll tell you what, it's something to see. Now, these people, the Cagle brothers and the other fellows, Tom Mix, is lookalikes. They really get into character too, don't they?
Oh, they just love it, and they play it 110%. They just they dress and everything has to be just so. And they're just fabulous bunch of people.
It's a time to meet, get autographs from these people too. But they also do a little.
We do shootouts. This last year we had a shootout at Canyons.
Okay.
Out there on Sage Lake. And we'll be back again next year, and we're going to have the Buckaroo contest next year out there for the kids. And then we always do the Michigan Valley Railroad up in Fairview. They go up there and they spend the day out in the woods and riding the trains with the kids and giving out pictures. Mm-hmm. And this year we also were at Timber Steakhouse for a shootout, which went over real well. This next year we're also going to be at Liberty Pines.
Okay.
They're going to have one day where they're going to have all these different vendors come in with saddles and bridles and horseshoeing, and this will be a demo thing going on all day, and they're going to have barbecue for the people and this type of stuff, and the cowboys will be out there spending the day and just having fun. And they said they're going to bring some of their memorabilia up to sell because they get so much.
Is that going to be a whole day event there?
Whole day event.
Oh my! Michigan Magazine's going to have to take part in that.
Now, this is going to be the weekend after 4th of July. 4th of July is on a Thursday. And they're going to start coming up on Friday, and we'll have like 3 or 4 days that they'll be here. We're doing all these different events.
So you're going to be at Liberty Pines and Canyons and Timbers?
Timbers, and we'll be up at the Michigan Valley Railroad.
Yeah.
And just having a bunch of fun.
Yeah, it's amazing. These fellas are from all parts of the country. Well, a few of the states, Maryland, and where else are they from?
Ohio, Indiana.
Okay. All right.
North Carolina, Georgia. But I know that when we were up at the Valley Railroad there, these kids, they know who wrote Roy Rogers, and they know Tom Mix, and they're starting to understand because they're seeing all this back on television,
Yeah.
the good television.
Yeah, yeah.
And this makes a lot of difference, you know.
Yeah, it does. It's going to be exciting, and this is all coming up next year. It's kind of a culmination of the years that you started this back in the early days, and this will be the 13th years.
Right.
My goodness. And a lot of these, the Cagle brothers been with you from the very beginning?
Yeah, the Cagle brothers have, yeah.
They love the kids. I mean, the kids just...
Yeah, I know Lash, he says that's the only reason he comes is for the kids.
Yeah.
You know, he gives them an autograph picture and a little badge, a sheriff's badge, and the Lone Ranger hands out masks, and they enjoy it. They really do. It'd be July 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Okay, all right. And for more information, they can contact you, Cliff.
But we'll have it up online. We'll be talking about it. And it will get
hopefully we can do some live streaming of some of these events.
right.
Okay, thanks, Cliff.
Thank you, Barry.
Michigan Magazine is being brought to you in part by 33 Motorsports Park family racing fun for all ages and skill levels. 3 tracks located on M33 in Oscoda County. Come watch or join in the action all year long. Developed for motorcycles, quads, UTVs, and snowmobiles. 33 Motorsports Park. Discount Foods Downtown Mayo. Find national name brand foods and merchandise at sharply discounted prices. Shop the smart way and please the family without breaking the budget. Discount Foods Downtown Mayo. Hingeman Acres Canoe Livery and Resort on M33 just north of Mayo, catering to the outdoor enthusiasts. Cabins, canoes, kayaks, rafts, and more. Daytime or overnight trips along the world-famous Asabo River. A family getaway for over 75 years. Clemix Sales and Service on Mapes Road, west of Mayo, your complete recreational vehicle sales and service connection. Visit their beautiful showroom of new and pre-owned ATVs, lawnmowers, power equipment, snowmobiles, utility vehicles, and more. Clemix Sales and Service is also the home of the American-made Victory motorcycle line on display at Clemix on Mapes Road, Mayo.
Today here on Michigan Magazine, we are with Webster Wood, and Webster Wood is a gentleman who does some beautiful engraving and scrimshaw. He is a knife maker and an engraver. Webster, first of all, thank you so much for inviting us here.
Thank you for coming.
Home and down here to your workshop. It's a pleasure to meet you. I've met you before at one of the shows, and Tom Young, a mutual friend of ours, told me about you, and so here we are. Have you been a knife maker all these years, or what was your profession?
Well, I was a school teacher for 33 years.
Oh, that's interesting, to say the least.
In the suburbs of Detroit. And I moved up here 5 years ago when I retired. I was a gun engraver part-time for 20 years, and did that as a summer job and weekends and evenings and whatever. And finally a guy came to my house one day and asked me to engrave a knife, and I'd never had the opportunity to engrave a knife because the blades are always hard. Well, he was the maker, and he had them before they were hardened, and so he said to me, you know, you can do these because they aren't hardened. So I went ahead and did them, and about a week later he came back with 6 more and asked me to do 6 more, and I said, well, what happened to the first ones? And he says, well, he said, I sold them. And I thought, well, gosh, I never sold a gun that fast. So I went right out and bought all the equipment and went ahead and did. Well, I found out 3 years later that he lied to me, that was his way to get me to do 6 more. But so I switched over, but I really enjoy it because for the first time in my life, the product is all mine. I make the knife, I do the engraving, and so it's nobody else's. The work's there, it's mine. So that's kind of the fun of it, you know.
So all these years you've been a teacher, and you've been working at this craft that you have learned very, very well. You're very well known throughout the state and throughout the country with your beautiful engravings and your scrimshaw and making of knives. When you say hardened, the steel has to be hardened to make a knife. Can you explain to us what
the steel starts out as just a flat piece of metal, something similar to this. It just starts out as a blank piece of metal. You cut it out, and then you profile the knife so that it ends up being cut out, shaped, and then you go ahead and you do the grinds in here, which are the hollow grinds for making the knife. Once you get this to this point right here, then it has to be engraved, because you have to do it, and then you put it in an oven, and you run it up to 1950, well, it depends on the type of steel. Each steel has its own program for heat treat. You put it in the oven, and this particular one is a piece of 440C stainless, and it goes in the oven at 1950 degrees. When it comes out, it's yellow-white. You can almost see through it.
Really?
And with all the stainless series, it's called air quenched. With oil steel, you dump it into oil to quench it. But with stainless, you just put it out in the air and let it cool. And when it cools, that shocks the steel, and it changes what's called the marstenite inside, which changes the molecular structure and makes it hard. Now, when it comes out of there, it's actually too hard to ever use for a knife. It's gone to what's called maximum hardness. The temper then is you put it back in the oven after it's cooled, and you bring it up to a certain temperature for a certain period of time depending on how hard you want it to be. Now when this comes out of the oven the first time, it's at what's called a Rockwell of 61. It's so hard you couldn't file it with a file.
Is that right?
And then you put it back in the oven at 950, or at between 450 to 950 depending on what hardness you want it to be. And when it comes out, then it cools, and then it is that hardness of whatever you have set according to the program for the particular steel.
Now, would this be something that, I mean, say like the gentleman who was purchasing the knife or has come to you and said, I need a knife like this, and he would give you all the particulars, and you would ask him what type of knife, is it for show, is it for use, utilitarian use? Is that what you'd base that on? Or
it would depend on what he wants it for. Now, for example, a big knife like this, you would never Rockwell very hard, because if somebody was going to chop or whack with it, and I have guys have them made to build deer blinds and use in place of a hatchet or whatever, you make those on the softer side so they've got more flexibility. On one of my hunting knives, I'm known for the fact that my knives hold an exceedingly good edge. And what I do on these is I make them harder. If you try to sharpen this knife, it's going to sharpen with reluctance. But because it also sharpens with reluctance, it also dulls with reluctance, so it lasts a lot longer. I've got two guys
I'll tell you what, there's more to this knife business than I ever imagined.
I've got two guys that claim they've gutted 25 deer with one of my knives and haven't had to resharpen. Now, I don't know whether it's the truth, but I hope it is.
Yeah, my goodness, I guess. Your knives, okay, give us a little example here. We were just talking, if I came to you or a hunter or whatever, regardless, and come to you and said, okay, I'd like to have a knife made on this order. What is it that we discuss?
We'd sit down, and if he has a particular shape in mind, if he can draw it, I'd say draw it, or we'll sit down with a piece of paper and sit there and draw out the idea.
This right here.
Yeah, this is one that I did for this knife, is what I plan on doing with this knife right here, eventually with the engraving. This is going to be all blued steel with gold wire put into it, and this is going to be back here. It took me 4 years to find this handle material, and I paid $600 for it.
Wow.
This is a stuff called composite red coral. There's only one man in the world that makes it, and he swears he's never going to make it again. It's like a rock. See, you couldn't get a piece of coral that big, so they crush it and then somehow reconstitute it back together and compress it. And he swears that that's the last piece that'll ever exist, and it makes a beautiful handle. It's terrible to work with, but once you get it done, it is absolutely gorgeous.
$600.
$600. So, that's one thing that people don't realize is the handle materials and things cost a tremendous amount of money. So what I do, we sit down and we draw it out here, and once I've got the basic drawing, then it's just a question of what do you plan on doing with the knife. If it's going to be a hunting knife, then we'll harden it one way. If it's going to be something, a lot of people get the concept that an engraved knife like this should be used strictly as an art piece. Now you can do that, and the art knives, such as this big one back here, is like one of these large ones. Most of these, I mean, there's no practical use for a Bowie knife like this, but it's something that a person buys for an investment, and this stuff is going up about 20 to 25% a year. I call this the Griffin. If you look on this side, you see it has a winged griffin that I engraved into the blade.
Okay.
And when you get into knives like this, usually they have a name. They're like a piece of art that you name them. And this one has a piece of malachite with a cabochon on the back. And then when I constructed the sheath, I did the sheath with the same thing on there, so it carries the theme through.
These one of a kind?
Yes, they're absolutely one of a kind. That's what you're buying when you invest.
Right.
Now that particular knife goes for $2,200.
Woo! So it is one of a kind.
And people, people get amazed at the price.
But you spend a lot of time, a lot of hours in
that knife I've got over a year.
Is that?
Now it's not continuous. It's like the one that's in the vise here. You saw me working at that at the show. That knife is one of my knives. I have to work it around customers' orders. And so I can't work on it continuously. So I work on it whenever the opportunity arrives, and I like to do it at shows so people can get an idea of what it's like and how you do it, because people think you've got some kind of a machine that stamps that in, and it's actually done with those little tools on the table, the little hammer and the chisel that's there.
What is the satisfaction? I mean, it must be good therapy, for one thing.
Well, first of all, there's no money in this.
No money. But, so it's got to be therapeutical.
That's right. You know what it is? It's what I call the ooh-ah factor. You take, and it's people come up to the show and come up to the tables, and they go ooh-ah, and they stroke you right there for what you do. And so it's immediate gratification, and you don't get that anywhere else in the world.
What was your influence? I mean, to get into the Was there somebody that...
In 1963, on the cover of a National Rifle magazine, was a Ruger handgun that I happened to own one like it. And it had silver inlays on it and whatever. It had been engraved by a man by the name of E.C. Prudhomme in Shreveport, Louisiana. And so I wrote E.C. Prudhomme and asked him how much to engrave my gun, and he wanted $600 to engrave it, and I was making $5,000 a year. That was over 10% of my salary. And I no way is Mama going to let me spend 10% of my salary on a gun.
Yeah.
So I wrote him and asked him how I could learn. And he says, well, I've got a book, and I'm looking to see if I can see it. Right here, this is the book that he sent me, and at that time I paid like $30, I think, or something for it.
My goodness.
And all this book does is show pictures of engraving.
Right.
And there's one page that tells you how to engrave.
And so that one page was the one that kicked through.
That one page, right? Or actually, there's a couple.
Yeah.
But what it amounts to is that's all there was. Up till several years later, I'd never seen another engraver work. I did my own thing, and it was... I still do things different than most engravers, but I won't change because I think my way's better. So
on the job training,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah. Well, Webster, at this point, it certainly has been a pleasure to talk to you. And come over here to beautiful, we're in Atlanta, Michigan, right?
Atlanta, right.
In Atlanta, well, elk country.
Elk capital of the world.
Yeah. And to come down here and visit with you, and we thank you so much for being part of Michigan Magazine.
Thank you.
So there you go. Thank you once again for joining us. That's all the time we've got for this edition of Michigan Magazine. We'll see you next week on RFD TV or online at MichiganMagazine.com. Have a great week. We'd like to thank all those that help keep Michigan Magazine on the road. Randy's Restaurant and Bakery, downtown Rose City. Freshly baked daily. Cookies, breads, pastries, donuts, homemade pies, and more. Randy's has a full menu to tackle the heartiest appetite, including pizza and hand-dipped ice cream. The Michigan-made rebounding mailbox pole. Never again worry about the winter snowplow taking out your mailbox with this ingenious rebounding pole. Your mailbox takes a hit and keeps coming back year after year. Call now or visit their website, toughmailboxes.com. Rose Valley Winery, committed to making quality wines from locally grown cold hardy grapes. Rose Valley Winery on Beechwood Road, Rose City. Greenbrier Golf Course, Sage Lake Road, Lupton. You'll love this beautiful, professionally designed 18-hole course with a bogey golfer in mind. From pro to beginner, Greenbrier will have you returning for more. Enjoy the watered fairways, driving range, full-service restaurant, bar with Wi-Fi, and gift shop. Greenbrier, Sage Lake Road, Lupton.